Recently I've been playing with Compulsion, another great rack extension from Electric Panda. Check them out if you get a chance. Previous video is on Propulsion, which is another rack extension from them. I've been playing around with that just before Christmas last year. Done some pretty cool stuff with it, but kind of let me down a bit when I wanted to get the data into the sequencer. So if you want to see how I'm using Compulsion, stay tuned and I'll show you how I'm using it, the sequencer, to create some interesting sounds.
This is great. This is great. This is great. This is great. We all get it.
Okay, so this is an example of the sort of sound I'm playing with at the moment, and you probably look at this and say you could do this with a matrix pattern sequencer, but that's true, but there's some additional things you can do in here using Compulsion as a sequencer as well, and it's kind of straightforward to get this into the sequencer in Reason using this center track button here. So just listen to this. Okay, so let's just break this down. Let's take a look what we've got here. So started off by creating a combinator and then a line mixer in there. Inside here you'll see got two devices, monotone bass synthesizer and layers, quadraphonic sample player. And each of those, if we flip this around, is the audio is piping into the line mixer here, one from layers and the other one from monotone bass synthesizer. So the bit I found interesting here, by using one of the players, Compulsion sequence arpeggiator, we're going to focus on the sequencer, not the arpeggiator today, but simply dropping one of those onto each of the instruments inside the combinator gives you a whole wealth of options here in terms of programming patterns. So if we take a quick tour around this, it's super similar to the Propulsion device that I went over, but as I say, the ability to center track here or direct record into the sequencer down here I found was a little tricky. Tried a few things to try and get that data out correctly, but it wasn't quite working for me. It just seemed a little bit too difficult to do. So basically achieved what I was doing in that video by using two Compulsion sequencers here. So if we just take a look at the first one here, I'm using the gate here to trigger these particular notes. You can slide this scale up and down here. You can mess around with the different scales down here, and you basically just, same as you do with Propulsion, is just click on the cell where you want the gate to fire. So if we just play this one on its own, so top bar here you can adjust the steps. Okay, so you can stretch this out for the maximum. This one I've got running at 3, 6, 8. And then if you look at S12, I've got that running for 16. And then I'm playing F on that one and C on this particular one, which gives that little bit of a variation in the pattern there. If we go down to the Compulsion device that's playing monotone bass, again doing a 8 loop here, but I'm also just varying the pattern here, beginning C and F just like before. If I run this one as well, and then of course we could play those together. So how do you get that into the sequencer? So I'm just going to move Maschine up here, and I'm going to take these out for a second just so that you can see how I did this. So what I did was for each of the devices. I mean, you could obviously inside the combinator here, I can go up to 6, I can double up to 12, probably even go totally old school and use the mixer 14.2 in here. But anyway, I'm creating a track for Fat Synth, and I'm creating a track for the house chord lead there. And then what I'm doing is I'm literally just saying center track from each one. What that does is it records the notes, just like any of the players that you see in Reason now, straight into the sequencer. But more importantly, it bypasses it as well, so it's not actually playing inside Compulsion anymore, it's all greyed out in there. You just do the same for the monotone bass as well, and that comes down there again. It's disabled. Now if I play it down here, so at this point you could potentially just remove the Compulsion rack extension from there because it's done its job. I tend to keep them there so I can go back and tweak this if I need to. There's quite a few features in here that you can play around with. When you've got a row selected here, you can move it up and down, left and right. There's some random options in here, which is useful. And then inside tools here, there's some options to copy between the different S1 to S2 to S3 and so on. Patterns, you've got 8 across the top here as well. And there's some interesting things you can do around velocity and the length. So on this particular one here, we could just adjust this here to get a different got to make sure you're on the one that you're adjusting here. Put those back to where we were. So again, if you go on to Electric Panda's website, there's a manual you can download that goes through all these features. But I was thinking about, certainly if you're making techno music, and you can adjust some of the lengths of these things to get some interesting patterns going before you dump them down into the sequencer here. You can also get them down here by using direct record. So I can come down to Fat Synth here, do direct record, and I may sort of stop it at that point to do that. And that's another way, but remember, just by doing direct chord, it won't disable it in Compulsion there. You have to manually turn that off. Of course I can Control C, Control V that to finish that particular loop during the clips. So as I say, there's a lot more stuff in here that you can do with this, and of course you could replace Compulsion here with the matrix pattern sequencer if you wanted to as well. You could achieve similar sort of patterns and adjust the step lengths here if you want to. But I've been getting some interesting loops going by using these two, and of course you could save this in the combinator and recall it and just swap out the instruments, the patches on demand, and tweak some of the steps that you've got in here. Use some of the random features as well, just to see how you fare with that. So check them out, Electric Panda and Compulsion, the sequence arpeggiator. If you like the video I've just done, please subscribe. Thanks.
Yeah.